Hey everybody, it's your favorite two bald nerds. I'm Mike Meyers, and this handsome young man next to me is Mr. Richard Chapman himself from Cyber Labs. Richard, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm actually doing great now because you called me handsome today instead of ugly. So
what's the old guys insult other guys and don't mean it, right? you incredibly unattractive man.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, it's always good. I love doing the two bald nerds with you, Richard. But I got to tell you, something has popped up recently. I've been hearing some noise on, it might be trolls, it might be otherwise, I don't know. But people are saying, man, these entry-level SOC analyst positions, it's just a sweatshop, Just imagining that movie Ben-Hur, boom, boom, row well and live, and all that stuff. And
Right.
I was just curious what your opinion was on that. And what did you think of the statement that SOC analysts are doing nothing more than IT sweatshops?
To be honest, I have a pretty strong opinion on this because I have heard, yes, there are situations where things are a little tough, but I've heard nothing like that as far as IT sweatshops. And I worked in a SOC. But listen, but before we actually get too deep into my opinion and some of my thoughts on that, I think we should probably talk about what a SOC analyst is and what they do. Would you agree?
Sure.
Okay. So first and foremost, a SOC analyst is someone that is, at the end of the day, they are protecting a network. They're protecting computer systems, data, information, people, clients for companies, for corporations. There's a ton of different ways that they do that. They spend a healthy amount of time almost being like a private investigator, investigating events that are going on in a network and really monitoring that information, documenting it, making decisions on what needs to be done to help improve the security stance of that environment. So that's kind of like in a nutshell, what a SOC analyst is doing. So yeah, I think we should start with that first. Once that's done, I think we can probably talk about my opinion on IT sweatshops. Full disclosure, I worked in a SOC. I was a SOC analyst, right? I know what it's like to actually work in a SOC. And yes, I will tell you, there are definitely some shifts that are not the best. You are working shift work though. And at the end of your shift, guess what? You go home. Most of these analysts are working a 40-hour week. They have a really good work-life balance. I mean, that's something everybody aspires for. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, I guess I'm old school enough where it was like, I'm one of those boomers who's been defined by his work and all that stuff. But I understand that work-life balance is important. So we talk about the roles. Can we develop that a little bit and talk about pay as well? Can we kind of chew on both of that a little bit? So help me out here a little bit. I'm a little confused on the roles, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. So, I mean, first off, when you're talking about your first tier or your first line of defense in most SOC organizations, you're usually talking about junior level or tier 1 level analysts. Now, there are a lot of different titles that encompass this kind of the same role. Okay. SOC analyst, information security analyst. These are all kind of normal titles that different companies use to describe the exact same thing. Kind of what I was just talking about earlier. But there are other aspects of the career as well, too. There are other positions. All right. First off, you have your tiers. Your higher level, more experienced analysts are going to be like your tier 2s, tier 3s, and then up into your management level. And they're usually doing the escalations. They're doing the harder investigations. They're the true positives. They're leading those. And they're also leading those junior level and tier 1 level analysts. But even them, most of the time, they're doing a 40-hour week. And unless there's a really big attack and all hands are on deck to make sure that everything is staying safe and secure during that attack, they're generally working 40 hours a week as well, too.
So when we're talking roles, we're really talking about tier 1 or level 1, tier 2, level 2, tier 3, level 3. That's the big breakdown. So give me an idea how much money we making on these 3 different levels, Richard?
Yeah. So, I mean, tier 1 level analyst, it's not uncommon for them to have their very first role in the industry, making between $60,000 and $90,000 a year. I mean, that's really, really average, believe it or not. If you look at the Department of Labor statistics and so forth, they say the average tier one analyst is making about $55 an hour. That's pretty impressive. I mean, that's like over $100,000 a year. And even if you don't start at that rate, even if you start at like $35, $40 an hour, usually within 6 months to a year, you can move to a role and actually be making six figures. It happens all the time, and I've seen it.
So that means moving up to like a tier 2, level 2 SOC analyst?
Possibly, or just moving to another company that has a larger, greater need and can actually pay a little bit more because they've actually budgeted a little bit more money and are willing to pay that to someone who's got maybe even a little bit of experience.
So given the, always love, they talk about in the United States Army, they go, what's the difference between a master sergeant and a lieutenant? And they go, nothing other than the fact that only the lieutenant can lead. So, warrant officers, they can fly the helicopters, they can command, they run the tanks, they can do everything but lead. And I was curious, what is the difference between a tier 1 and a tier 2 SOC analyst?
Usually time, experience, knowledge. I mean, that's it. Tier 2s usually have a little more time under their belt. They've got more tools on their tool belt. They know how to do a little more. Maybe they've got a little more capabilities as far as programming, scripting, deconstructing malware, things like that. They've just got a little more contextual knowledge that comes with time and experience.
Okay, that's helpful. So, man, it doesn't sound like a sweatshop to me at all, Richard. 40 hours, listen, working midnight till 8 in the morning. I used to run those shifts. I was a teamster back in the day. And I always loved working midnight till 8 in the morning because it was 8 in the morning and I was done for the day. And it was 8 in the morning. Yeah.
Right.
Of course, then there was a problem. It was 11:45 the next day. And I hadn't remembered to do things like, I don't know, sleep and pulling doubles, man. It was
right.
Yeah, I was a teamster a billion years ago. So,
gotcha.
So, all right. So what do you think the real problem is here then? What are we hearing?
I think the negative stuff that we're hearing there are SOC organizations out there that are shorthanded. They need to grow. They need to get bigger. They have a lot more events that are occurring in their environment, but there is kind of a little bit of a disconnect right now between the budgetary constraints of the company and the needs of the SOC. So that means that they may not have as many people as they need. And people are moving from company to company to get those higher pay rates for those companies that have already decided, you know what, we need more budget for our cybersecurity. Look how important it is. I mean, we have more attacks now than we've ever had. That's going to continue to grow. And we have a massive shortage of analysts out there. So companies are willing to put some money out, but there's a lot of companies that aren't. So are there some SOC organizations that need to get off their checkbook and bring more people to the table? Absolutely. Fill that tier 1 level, put in some extra people, let them handle some more of the remedial tasks, give them the ability to learn and grow and build your organization from the ground up. I hear it all the time. Entry-level position available, and they want 3 to 5 years experience. They want all these certifications, the ability to do this and that and this and that. I'm like, guys, the guy that just left your organization was a tier 1, had been there for 3 to 5 years and earned those certifications. He just took a job as a tier 2 with that knowledge and experience. You're not going to hire someone at a tier 1 level with that experience and that amount of knowledge and expertise. It's just not, it's not the case.
I go ahead, Richard. I'm sorry. I was just
it actually frustrates me because I work with so many analysts who are breaking into the industry. And listen, I was in that boat, years ago and kind of had to overcome those same hurdles. And I felt comfortable enough in my abilities to be able to challenge, the recruiter or the interviewer and say, listen, I put my skill set up against somebody with 3 to 5 years. Did I have that on paper? No, I didn't. But I was confident in my ability to work hard and to grow and to continue to make myself better. And I proved myself to my SOC manager when I first started. I mean, I was given investigative tasks and was able to knock those out very, very effectively. And my SOC manager was like, "You're good to go. You're exactly what we hired, and I love what you're doing. Go for it." And I think there's a lot of other people like that out there.
Richard, you're absolutely right. The one thing I need to add to what you're saying is that our world has always been filled with gatekeepers. It may have been the movable print Gutenberg press printing guild back in 1350 or whatever, whenever the printing press was invented. And it's been a challenge for our industry to recognize the outrageous shortage of SOC analysts we got. And, we're fighting against these gatekeepers who, hey, Richard, 10, 15, not even 10, 15 years ago, it was like, oh, you had to have a master's degree in computer science and, all this stuff. And because of all the laws that have been generated, because of all the activity that's been going on, we can't afford to listen to those gatekeepers anymore. But Richard, man, thank you so much. I'm newer to this game than you are, but I'm quickly following in your footsteps and understanding some of the great opportunity as well as the frustrations of trying to basically retrain an industry.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being with you always.